Coming up on Rocky Clark, the legacy lives on.
I miss him. I miss him so much. I have my moments that I just cry that I gotta get out of here.
A life cut short simply because the money ran out.
The insurance gave him 10 years. The Lord gave him 11 years and 4 months.
I don't believe it should ever be a cap on life.
Things need to change. So yeah, we're fired up.
A tough lesson learned will be Rocky Clark's legacy.
And I'm just hoping and praying that they pass this bill.
That needs to be fixed right now.
Rocky Clark, the legacy lives on, starts right now. Recently, the NFL has come under fire for concussions and life-changing injuries that occur later in a player's life. It's been debated for years, but what about young kids in high school sports? They seem to have been overlooked in this situation. The story of Rocky Clark has brought insurance and injuries to the forefront. Unfortunately, for some, it's too little, too late.
I looked out and saw him lie motionless.
Rocky went to the ground fairly hard, and something terrible happened.
Ray met me at like the hash mark and he goes, "Greg, it's not good."
What looked like an innocent hit was anything but.
I never see how this happened. I mean, I've seen it 1,000 times in my head. I can see the play right now in my head, and it is a normal tackle. It is not a vicious hit. Probably there was 10 hits that game that were more vicious than that hit. I don't know how it happened.
We ain't played our whole lives the same and got tackled worse than that. So that's why I'm like, it's just like a freak accident.
Rocky was paralyzed.
The first thing he said to me is that he couldn't feel anything. So at that point, while I have the head, we're waiting for the ambulance crew to come on the field. The team doctor's performing reflex tests and finding no reflexes in the legs and arms. So that was pretty much confirmed it there for us on the field.
I don't even remember the rest of the game. I went out there and talked to him. You know, obviously the paramedics took control. You know, we're able to talk to him. We finished the game. It was a tough loss. I do remember that. Came back with the bus with the kids. The kids still didn't know. We didn't get any outcome of the actual tremendous damage that it caused. And then immediately afterwards, I got in my car and went to Olympia Fields Hospital. And at that time, it was already decided. He had the halo on his head. He was having surgery on Monday, and it was a severed spinal cord.
The injury doesn't necessarily come from the hit with the other player. It came from how the head hit the ground. When the head hit, it snapped forward, and that pressure essentially pushed the vertebrae back into the spinal cord.
Rocky's mom, Annette, worked overtime that night, so she wasn't at the game. She got a call that Rocky was in the hospital.
When I got up to the hospital, they brought him through and I touched him. He said, "Mom." I said, "I'm here, baby, I'm here." And then the doctor had the nurse on one shoulder and my brother on the other one. He said, "Your son never used his arms and legs again," like they was gonna keep me down from having a fit. I said, "My son walked out of here this morning, and you know," I said, "You know, you have to say what you have to say. You're a doctor."
I had a feeling that it was as bad as it looked. When I got to the hospital, the team doctor informed me right away that yes, the x-ray was really bad. It's going to be a long process. You could see the disappointment. I think he understood quicker than anybody what it meant.
You would think a young man that age would be sad and down. He had his moments, you know, why me, you know. But as time went by, he laid around, you know, laid there and said, I just got to play with the cards I was dealt.
As far as the conversation that I ever had with him, he never said, "Why me?" Never said, "Why me?" So it was a rough night that night. It was even rougher the next morning when we had practice at 8 o'clock with the team. Kind of now word is being spread through the community, through our team about what's happening with Rocky, and we did have to have this difficult conversation with the team Saturday morning. Just complete shock that whole week, that week of games. I mean, there was kids missing practice. We had a lot of crisis management, social workers talking to our players. They'd be in the middle of practice after Cal's. A few of his close friends, Josh McClinton, would break down, understandably so.
And the following day, that's when I saw him. And that's when I was like, wow, he's really hurt. I really went into a shell a little bit, I could say. I didn't want to be bothered with people. I didn't want to talk to people, really. And it was just like, I was still like in shock about because hey, we stay across the street. Like, if I come out my house, he coming out his house to go to school together. Like, it was just the initial shock of the whole situation.
Ironically, when it came time for Rocky's mom, Annette, to sign the papers allowing her son to play football that year, she was hesitant.
He brought the papers home for me to sign, from the school. And it took me 3 days. And so his coach called and said, these papers need to be signed. We need them. And I looked at Rocky. I said, I guess, I'll go ahead and let you play. And after that, that's when as I signed them papers, next thing I know, my baby had broke his neck.
His neck may have been broken, but his spirit was not.
He never felt sorry for himself. He was never angry. He was determined, and he wanted to help other people. If you walked in his room sad or mad, you didn't leave that way.
Taught me how to keep my head up and not to worry. He would always say, Mom, you worry too much. I said, well, Rocky, it's just me and you. He said, stop worrying. He was basically worried about me, I found that out. He was worried about his mama.
As time went on, you realized that you were more upset about it than Rocky was.
Rocky was like a really cool guy. I really liked him. And I liked being around him. He was like really inspiring.
He did not see any barriers to what it is in front of him. And so we just were pulled right into him and his life.
He had such a presence and such a strong will and such a strong desire when it could have just been easier for him to say, the heck with it, look what you did to me. I'm just gonna, kind of, I don't want to say coast, but just, I give up. And he did the 180-degree opposite of that.
As if the debilitating injury wasn't enough, a bigger issue arose after the injury.
Rocky Clark's mom did not have health insurance. So the high school district did have a catastrophic injury policy, a very rare policy. High schools typically do not insure their athletes, but District 218 did. They have had a $5 million policy for uninsured student athletes and their parents.
It's difficult. You want to make sure that all the families that have their children playing sports have some type of a solid primary insurance, and our insurance is only secondary insurance, and it's just difficult.
It has brought attention to the fact that parents don't realize that the high schools don't insure their athletes. So the boys go out and girls and compete, and little do they realize, that a broken neck, can really bring on a whole panorama, a whole world changed instantly, and they are unprepared.
Coming up, the Chicago Bears embrace Rocky.
He was special. He really lived up to his name.
He was one of those guys that just moved me once I spoke with him.
Plus, Rocky goes back to Eisenhower to coach.
And that's when I remember the kids looking at me like, Coach, I told you Rocky is pretty intense. And that's when I understood the magnitude he really has with our players.
Rocky Clark, The Legacy Lives On, will continue in a moment. Welcome back to Rocky Clark, The Legacy Lives On. Rocky became an inspiration to many people, not because of his injury, but because of his amazing spirit after the fact. I visited with him back in 2005, and he was full of life, even after his dreams of playing in the NFL were dashed.
That was my profession that, that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional athlete, but now things have changed. So now I have to go be professional in something other than sports.
Through the advice of Deacon Don Grossnickel, the Chicago Bears help with fundraising and donations for Rocky. But something stirred the organization to make the relationship with Rocky more personal.
Friendships started to develop with players, with coaches, with owners, and certainly with staff members. When he'd come out to practice didn't come to a halt, but it was close to it, where guys would come over and greet him. His smile led to smiles on other people's faces because of who he was, and guys loved to see him.
They just really loved my son, and Rocky loved them too. He really loved them.
His smile, it was warming and inviting, and he's one of those guys that you can definitely go up and talk to, and he'll tell you about the whole incident. He'll tell you about his life, what's going on daily, and he was one of those guys that just moved me once I spoke with him.
Nothing could keep Rocky away from the football field.
I remember him calling me up and saying, "Hey, Coach, you mind if I come along and coach with you?" And I went over to Rocky's house and looked at him. I said, without a doubt, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, it was always a great day when Rocky was around. Like I said, we'd make an announcement that, Rocky Clark's down at the north end of the football field, and all of a sudden you'd see scores and scores of people.
He just tell me how much work, you got to work harder than the guy beside you, If you're working real hard, it's somebody in Texas, working 10 times as harder. So, he really did ride me, and I'm glad for it now.
He always be like, just keep going hard, don't leave nothing on the field. Like, make sure you go every play 100%.
Everyone would complain about Coach Rocky's drills. I don't want to go over there. I don't want to go to Coach Rocky's drill. And I remember coming out with the mindset, I'm gonna put on some cleats. I go out, I'm gonna do the workout with the kids, and see how bad Coach Rocky's pushing the guys. And I remember going through his circuit training about 2 times, still being young enough to do it. And I remember dying at the end of the line, and it was my turn to go up, and I had my hands on my knees. And I looked up, and Coach Rocky said, "More, get going." I'm like, dude, I can't do it. And that's when I remember the kids looking at me like, "Coach, I told you Rocky is pretty intense." And that's when I understood the magnitude he really has with our players. He really works them hard.
Training with him, I always seen that little smirk. It was like, he'll have me doing stuff, and I'll be out in the middle of the field just dead tired, or just sitting in my own puke or something. Like, he'll just look at me and I'll be like, "What is this? This is not funny. This is not cool."
Rocky just wanted to be a normal kid, and he wasn't because of what happened, but it was just a physical disability. It didn't define him.
Rocky just wanted to be Rocky. He wanted to be someone who could contribute in life and be positive and help others. And, I think in his own way he did that, and he did it to a wonderful extent.
He used to always tell me to be positive, just be positive and be more assertive, because I was always really, really quiet. And I used to be like, "Oh, I'm stressed out." He's like, "Well, you just got to stay positive." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll try."
And eventually, Rocky was able to get his diploma from Eisenhower and attend college at South Suburban.
I still remember graduation just gave you chills, the ovation from everybody. And that accomplishment, and then going on taking collegiate courses, and then being able to show that he could do that from his condition, really motivated a lot of our kids.
Some kids do not even want to go to school, but Rocky still wanted to pursue a degree and to be an artist.
It was very nice that he chose us, and that he was able to be a student, have an age-appropriate experience, even though nothing about his life was normal anymore.
He had this kind of mischievous glint in his eye all the time, so I knew no matter what happened to him, he had not lost his spirit. And that's what was impressive, and I do think that's what the students fed off of too. He had a sense of humor, he interacted with them, he had a presence.
The fact that he was able to take so many classes and do so well here, I think really opened up our eyes and reminded us how important it is to be able to service everybody.
Up next, the problems with high school insurance and the crusade to help families get the coverage they deserve. Plus, the day that Rocky died.
It was touching.
This is tough.
I said, let go and let God, baby.
Rocky Clark, the legacy lives on, will continue in a moment. Rocky's catastrophic injury brought paralyzing and debilitating injuries to the forefront.
When his mom, very abruptly got a single piece of mail that says, there is no more money, you're done, the $10 million is gone. And Rocky and his mom were shocked and disappointed and somehow lived under the myth that it was going to extend for life.
I got the letter. It was a 2-sentence letter. I'm like, wow, they could have gave us a paragraph, I said, Rocky, insurance is gone. He thought he was going to be taken care of for the rest of his life. Rocky said he was being penalized for living too long. He was being penalized. And so then I had to let things go as far as my bills, as far as my mortgage, everything had went back. Was stacking up. But remind you, his medication and medical supplies came first.
And for the first time, he lashed out and was angry and was said, the system would rather that I be dead than basically to insure me or to care for me, and this is an injustice.
We don't know what our cap is on our insurance policies and things like that. It is a tragedy that he didn't get full coverage till the end, and I don't think it's anybody's fault, but it's something that needs to be fixed right now. There is no way he should be, not till the life, get any coverage that he needs to life. Unfortunately, it came up after the fact. Like nobody even knew it at year 8. Nobody was talking about this at year 9. Nobody talked about it until the insurance company cut it off, and it's too late at that point. So now it needs to be fixed.
And the parents need to be aware that there are dangers here. If something happens, are they covered? And if they are not, then what do you do? What action should I as an individual take, whether or not there is state legislation in place?
So now a bill called Rocky's Law is trying to be passed, led by Don Grossnickel, who became a close friend of Rocky Clark, constantly fighting for his rights.
We're working with legislators to make a law, and the law would be very simple. When high school athletes are performing in any venue, the law requires those that have them perform insure them. So the Illinois High School Association then would have to insure all athletes.
I think the bill probably needs some amendment because we need to address how do we get the coverage without an absolute mandate. So we have to figure out how to do that, and there are some legal issues.
And I'm just hoping and praying that they pass this bill because it needs to be. Because a parent, I want to be able to, if the Lord lets me live and, and keep me in my right mind, to be able to sit down and tell that parent, if you want to keep your child at home and take care of your child, your life ends.
Remember, you have to get 60 votes in the House, you've got to get 30 votes in the Senate, and you have to have it signed by the governor. So it's not a quick process.
Things need to change. So yeah, we're fired up. We're fired up, and people are starting to pay attention. And if Rocky Clark's legacy is anything, it's being a teacher.
I don't believe it should ever be a cap on life. I don't think there's no value past the cap to put on a life.
The insurance was gone. There was a clot in his lung. A surgery followed. Rocky was weak, and he told his mother he was tired of being sick.
And I looked at him and I said, don't you ever say that to me. Ever. And I walked in the hallway and I just cried. When I got back in his room, he was asleep, but a tear was rolling down his face.
He was very adamant. Early in the day, he had said to me, I don't want to be on the ventilator. No tube, no tube. And So Mom and I talked about it, and we wrote an order so that he would not be resuscitated. And like she said, it's time for you to go to God. So that was it.
Guess he just said, forget all this, you know? Forget all this. I held him. He said, Mama, I want to sit up. He said, Mama, I love you, I love you, I love you. I said, I love you too. So I'm around here, around the hospital going crazy, running from the flow. And so then I talked to the Lord. I said, I've asked you, I had asked the Lord many times before to let me have him because he would have been gone. And he gave him right back to me. But this time it was for Rocky to go ahead on, and you know, I said to the Lord, I said, thy will be done. Got back upstairs and I said, let go and let God, baby.
The day he passed away, I was there at the hospital.
Can you describe it?
It was touching.
I could not actually go into the room. I was just too emotional. So they let him in, and because he's used to seeing that as a pastor, and it was...
Yeah. It was hard. It was hard because of no matter how much you see something like that as a pastor, or if you're in the medical field, there's people who touch you. And he was one of them. So as I came in to pray with him the first time, he was fighting for his breaths.
His mom told him that she loved him, and then he said, I love you 3 times. And then he was just like, he asked me to help him, and I'm like, well, how can I help you? And then he's like, he just kept saying, I think he said it like a couple of times, help me. And then he wanted us to like sit him straight up. So we sat him straight up, and because he was having a hard time breathing. And it was just, I don't know.
Rocky Clark died at the age of 28.
You know, when you hear the words that Rocky has passed, that's pretty tough. And because of who it was, I mean, human life is so delicate. But when you lose a friend to so many, and not just to me, to so many here at the organization, here at the Bears, because of the friendships that developed.
You know, just like the movie Rocky, you always feel like, you know, on the 9th count, Rocky would get up again, and once again, we would be able to say, we've conquered, okay? But when Annette, you know, called me, it was bigger than life, hard to take, and a shock.
Rocky stood for so much, and he also stood for courage and strength. And he transitioned from being Coach Rocky to a superhero. And normally when you think about superheroes, you don't think that they can be hurt, or you would always think that, imagine they'll be here. So to finally hear that our superhero slash friend slash little brother was taken away, it was real tough. This is tough. He meant a lot to me.
And so, Rocky's legacy lives on in the fight to end insurance caps.
My son had to get hurt and die to try to make a point, you know. This, you know, that makes me angry every time I think about it.
It goes quickly. It goes quickly, and when you outlive that money, all of a sudden there are real burdens placed on the family. No question about it.
I know he was upset and mad at the end because of all the hardship and pressures they put on his family, and especially his mom.
I would hope that if I got paralyzed playing a sport in school, that they could take care of me, you know, properly. And it's sad to hear that's how he died. You know what I mean? So I'm glad he survived for those years, though. You know what I mean? Or he wouldn't be able to talk to the people he did, you know, inspire the people he did, you know, because he was really the heart of the Cardinals for the past 5 years. So but it's sad. So
That's all he wanted was his insurance back, and for for future students to have their insurance for their entire life if they were injured, playing a sport, any type of sport. So yes, I believe it's his legacy.
I try to fire up everybody that I can to work with us to make things better. That's what I think Rocky Clark would want us to make life better for others. That was always his quest.
I know I'm a better man knowing Rocky because how he's touched my life.
He has changed, Annette, our lives for the rest of our lives.
He'll always be remembered. He was too unique not to.
I learned a lot from Rocky. I mean, he was just really, really inspiring to everybody that met him. I think everybody pretty much that met Rocky was inspired by him and touched in some kind of way.
The insurance gave him 10 years. The Lord gave him 11 years and 4 months, I miss him. I miss him so much. I have my moments that I just cry that I gotta get out of here. So now, my baby's gone. My baby's gone,
Rocky's bill was reintroduced to the Senate at the end of November, but they found it to be too costly. Some officials are hoping to make small amendments to it and reintroduce it in 2013. South Suburban College now has a Rocky Memorial Fund for students attending the school that have disabilities. To see more about Rocky's amazing story, please log on to our website, csnchicago.com. I am Pat Boyle. Thanks for watching.
I can't worry about fallen hopes and shattered dreams. I've got to have new dreams and hopes. Nothing in life is guaranteed, and you just have to adjust to whatever life throws at you.